The courtroom was not going to be silent much longer. All eyes in the room were fixed on Christine and Janelle. As they entered together, side by side, fans had witnessed the fissures in the sister-wives family growing wider. But no one thought this. The two women who Kody had believed he could control had found common ground, determined to expose all that he so desperately sought to keep hidden. Kody sat at the defendant's table, arms folded, jaw clenched, his once confident smirk gone. The judge peered over her glasses, feeling the storm brewing. Christine smoothed her papers, her voice firm but cutting as she leaned into Janelle and whispered, "It's time." The battle lines were drawn. This was no longer a family feud. This was war, and Kody was about to find out what it is like to cross the women who know him better than anyone else. Also, for more than a decade, Sister Wives fans have been witnessing the complicated web of Kody Brown's polygamous dynasty disintegrating thread by thread. He once portrayed himself as the charismatic father figure, keeping 4 wives and close to 24 children together. But off-camera, cracks were appearing, trust was waning, loyalty was shattering, and betrayal was simmering in quiet. No one could have predicted that 2 of his most formidable wives, Christine and Janelle, would ever join forces, standing in a courtroom, not as enemies but as friends. And when they did, Kody's well-built world came tumbling down. The season picks up in the wake of Christine's drastic move to leave Kody. Her departure rattled the Brown family to its core. She was the one who finally spoke out loud what everyone had long suspected: that Kody's so-called family leadership had devolved into something much uglier: control, manipulation, and favoritism. Christine had tolerated it for years, but when she departed, she took with her more than her independence. She took secrets, memories, and receipts. Janelle, meanwhile, had been the practical wife from the start. She was level-headed, stable, centered on her children and money, not one to cause public upheaval. But the years of being ignored, shelved, and economically stunted under the dictates of Kody had left lasting wounds. When Christine came calling, hinting at papers, ledgers, and realities Kody did not want the world to know, Janelle listened, and then she consented. The most reserved wife was going to become the loudest voice. When Christine and Janelle entered that courtroom hand in hand, it was not merely 2 former wives trying to get closure. It was a coalition, a united front with evidence and resolve. The tension was thick, reporters rushed around, and fans across the world held their breath. This was no typical family rivalry. This was about assets, money, promises unfulfilled, and emotional destruction. Kody sat rigidly at the defense table, his golden ringlets in disarray, now a tangle of anxiety. Next to him, Robin squeezed his hand like a lifeline, her gaze flicking between Christine and Janelle, with thinly disguised terror. For years Robin had been the favorite, the wife who got the lion's share of Kody's attention, affection, and financial resources. But now, that favoritism was Exhibit A in the case against him. Christine spoke first, her voice firm and unshakable. She outlined years of emotional abandonment, the gradual dismantling of her marriage, and the instant she saw Kody's concept of family only benefited him. Each sentence was infused with the acidity of quiet fury, each silence weighted with truth. Janelle spoke after her, laying out the facts: financial records, deed to the properties, and signed contracts that testified to a reality far removed from Kody's television persona. The courtroom was shocked as Janelle exposed how a large portion of the family fortune was redirected into Robin's home, while Christine, Mary, and even her own kids barely managed to get by. "We built this life together," she stated, her voice breaking with emotion. "And yet he left us behind and shielded only one." Kody shifted restlessly, attempting to interrupt, but the judge interrupted him. His rage overflowed, his face flushed as he growled of betrayal and deceit. But the more words he uttered, the more disheveled he appeared, a man coming apart at the seams of reality. Christine leaned forward, her eyes fastened on him, and stated, "For years you told us we were one family, but you destroyed that family when you selected control over love, power over partnership." The drama came to a head when a private recording was played. It was Kody's voice, unmistakable, saying to one of the wives that his sole concern was Robin and her children, and that the others must get used to it. The room was filled with gasps. Robin cried, covering her face, while Kody yelled, "That's out of context." But the harm was done. The facade was breached. The patriarch had been exposed. Christine and Janelle didn't let up. They laid out years of messages, financial statements, and statements from their children, testimony to abandonment, to sitting in the car as their father waved them off, while throwing attention in other directions. What was once rumor among fans of the program was now sworn testimony. The breaking point occurred when Janelle, the normally reserved peacemaker, finally spoke up. "We gave him everything. Our loyalty, our trust, our lives. And he used it to create a kingdom where only one wife was important. This isn't about jealousy. This is about justice." Her words shook the courtroom like thunder. For the first time, Kody appeared small, trapped, a man deprived of his authority. As the case progressed, the judge listened intently, taking notes as he sat tall, obviously unmoved by Kody's tantrums and contradictions. Christine and Janelle stood firm, no longer in the background of Kody's narrative, but now authors in their own right. Their solidarity was strong, their bravery unquestionable. The zenith was the verdict. While the case revolved around money quarrels, the decision was symbolic of far greater things. The judge ruled in favor of Christine and Janelle, giving them considerable control over assets and property Kody had attempted to protect. But the real triumph was not in land or cash. It was in the public destruction of Kody's reputation. Outside the courthouse, there were reporters in a gaggle. Christine went first, her smile serene but triumphant. "We stood up because we had to. We deserve better, and so do our children." Janelle contributed, "This was never about revenge. This was about truth." Back indoors, Kody slumped in silence, Robin beside him, mascara smudged by tears. For a man who had once celebrated domination of a large family, the sight was crushing. He was not the strong patriarch anymore. He was the broken defendant. The Globe witnessed, and the web went wild. Social media was flooded with fans, hailing Christine and Janelle's courage. Memes ridiculed Kody's collapse. Hashtags #TeamChristine and #Justice for Janelle trended globally. What began as murmurs of displeasure had escalated to a cultural reckoning. Ultimately, Christine and Janelle gained more than just legal triumph. Though, they gained something much more: freedom, empowerment, and unity. Their coalition achieved what decades of quiet never had: the outing of Kody, the removal of his cover, and the reminder that even the greatest civilizations can crumble when they are founded on deceit. And for Kody Brown, the message was plain. The wives he believed would always bow to his authority finally stood up. As a unit, they dismantled the very image he worked his life to maintain. The air within the courtroom seemed to be thick, almost choking, as if all present were aware that history would soon be made. Forward leans of the rows of onlookers went silent in anticipation of the door creaking open. This wasn't another ordinary case on the list. It was a public stripping of one of America's most well-known families. The Browns had spent more than a decade in living rooms, their polygamous existence reality TV drama. But today there were no cameras, no confessionals, and no editing manipulations to sugarcoat the facts. The bailiff thundered, "All rise." The scrape of chairs on floor as the judge entered, her robe sweeping the shiny wood. But even her arrival couldn't divert attention from the actual tempest about to strike. The doors swung open. Christine Brown and Janelle Brown entered together. That one picture set whispers flying through the gallery. For years, Sister Wives fans had seen the two women struggle through complicated marriages, silent betrayals, and constant compromises at the behest of Kody. They had been wives, mothers, caregivers, peacekeepers, but here, standing shoulder to shoulder, their faces stone cold with resolve, they appeared like warriors. Christine's chin was lifted, her eyes burning with the soft flame of a woman who had nothing to lose. Janelle moved with steady calmness, her papers tightly gripped, her lips set in a straight line that covered a hurricane within. The implicit message was plain. This was not about jealousy or petty drama. This was about justice. And across the room, hunched tightly over at the defense table, was Kody Brown. His previously well-coiffed golden locks hung limp, his face flushed with defiance and panic in equal measure. He shifted uncomfortably in his seat, arms locked tightly across his chest as if to protect himself from the two women who were closing in on him. For years, Kody had been the epicenter of his world, insisting on respect, loyalty, and obedience. But now he was trapped, bereft of his swaggering confidence, obliged to defend himself not as a patriarch but as a man sworn. Alongside him, Robin gripped his hand as a lifeline. Her gaze darted nervously from Christine to Janelle, then the judge, as if in a silent prayer that this whole ordeal was some sort of dream. She was the favorite wife, the one whom Kody so boldly favored. But favoritism that had once protected her now left her under the brightest scrutiny. The judge cleared her throat, a keen glance in her eye. This court is now in session. We are assembled today to consider the case of Brown versus Brown. The muttering ceased at once. A quiet descended. Christine leaned over to Janelle, whispering words no one else could hear. But the look they shared spoke volumes. It was the kind of look only women who had walked through fire together could give. Mutual recognition that the time for silence was over. Christine went up first. As she adjusted the microphone stand, her hands did not quiver. Her voice did not crack. The picture of the subservient wife long familiar to viewers was erased. In its place was Christine's calm, measured, unwavering tone. For more than a quarter of a century we were assured that we were a family, that we were creating something holy together. What I experienced was not oneness. It was domination. It was abandonment. It was betrayal. The words hung in the air, heavy. Kody shifted, his jaw clenched. His lawyer wrote furiously with his pen, but the damage was already being done. Christine did not glance in his direction even once. She addressed the judge, the audience, the unseen millions who had watched her life story play out on television and were now hearing it straight. She spoke of the early days, the vows Kody had made, the optimism she held on to, the expectation that plural marriage was a foundation of equality and religion. But her voice grew cold as she transitioned into the reality years of being ignored, dismissed, treated as an afterthought as Kody's gaze fell elsewhere. Each sentence peeled back another layer of the polished veneer Kody had built. Then it was Janelle's turn. Unlike Christine, Janelle had always been more subdued, more reserved, less demonstrative. But that didn't make her words any less potent. She dropped a heavy stack of documents on the witness stand, financial records, deeds to property, contracts signed in Kody's own hand. For years we entrusted him with everything. Our money, our homes, our future. But look closely and you'll see the truth. Resources intended for all of us were diverted. Assets put in one household's hands, while the rest of us struggled to make ends meet. She opened the folder, spreading chart after chart, check after check, signatures linking each thread back to Kody. The gallery hummed in shock. Christine's tale of emotional abandonment was damning, but Janelle's cold hard facts were devastating. Kody's face reddened. He banged his hand on the table. "This is sick. You're distorting everything," he growled. The judge's gavel fell. Hard. "Mr. Brown, you'll be quiet until addressed." The room stood still. For the first time in decades, Kody's voice lacked its authority. The man who used to rule over a household of 4 wives and almost 24 children was being instructed to sit down and remain silent. Christine finally turned to him. Her gaze met his, unflinching. "You said we were family, but you rejected that family the minute you used love versus power. You can't shut us up anymore." The tension was palpable. Even the judge hesitated, her gaze darting back and forth between them as if sensing the historic significance of the moment. This wasn't merely a matter of money or assets. It was a settling of scores for decades of pain, silence, and manipulation. Reporters wrote frantically. Onlookers whispered. Fans were already writing frantically on social media. Hashtags such as #justice for Christine and #Team Janelle starting to gain traction as leaks within the courtroom made their way onto the internet. The most surprising part, though, was when Janelle produced a USB drive. "This," she stated assertively, holding it aloft, "holds recordings." His own words, not ours. Words that demonstrate precisely where his priorities lay, and who actually counted in this so-called family. The judge arched a brow. "Continue." A silence fell as the sound crackled to life. And then Kody's unmistakable voice dominated the room. "My sole priority is Robin and her children. The rest need to get over it or move out of the way. Gasps swept through the gallery. Robin hid her face in her hands. Christine's lips set into a grim line of vindication. Janelle sat back. Her point made, Kody leapt up from his seat. His face twisted in anger. That was out of context. That was private. You can't. Sit down, Mr. Brown. The judge barked. The gavel came down again, resonating with a deafening crash. For the first time, the courtroom witnessed him not as a leader, but as a man falling apart. His anger was no longer strong. It was desperate, empty, pitiful. Christine relaxed against the back of the chair, voice firm, rising above the tension. You instructed us to keep quiet for years. You dictated the script, told the world your side of the truth. But today, Kody, you don't get to control anything anymore. Today the truth speaks for itself. The subsequent silence was blinding. It was not just evidence. It was a declaration of war. And thus the fight was only just starting. The moment the recording ended, the room was frozen in stunned silence. The words still hung in the air. Kody's own voice, dismissing decades of marriage, discarding 3 wives, and reducing an entire family to background noise, while placing Robin at the center of his world. Robin's hands shook while she blotted her cheeks with a tissue, mascara streaking like black rivers down her face. She spoke softly to Kody, her lips hardly moving. You said no one would ever know. Her voice was trembling with fear. But too late. The truth was out. And Christine and Janelle weren't done. The judge leaned forward. Mrs. Brown, you may proceed. Christine stood once more, her heels clacking on the wood floor. In her hand was a manila folder full of papers, each page a fragment of the puzzle that would peel away Kody's meticulously constructed identity. She opened it, and inside were photocopies of scribbled notes, receipts, and signed contracts. Your Honor, she started assertively. Kody Brown came in as a husband to 4 women. But he wasn't behaving like a husband. He was behaving like a king, deciding who would prosper and who would not. These contracts show that vows were made to each of us. Vows about joint property, joint business ventures, and joint futures. But what really occurred was completely different. She held up a deed to one of the family's properties in Arizona. This land was meant to be shared by all of us, divided fairly. Instead, it was quietly transferred into the control of one household. My household. Mary's household, Janelle's household. We were left empty-handed. And the signatures on these transfers? She looked directly at Kody. All his. Kody's lawyer shifted uncomfortably, whispering something frantically into his ear. But Kody, face flushed with rage, banged his hand down on the table once more. This is all a lie. They consented to it. They understood the scheme. Christine did not blink. She looked back at the judge. We consented to creating a family. We never consented to being discarded. The judge nodded for her to proceed. The gallery leaned in, all onlookers eager for the next revelation. And then it was Janelle's turn. She arose, cool and calm, clutching her folder like a weapon. Your Honor, I've held my tongue too long. I thought if I remained quiet, everything would be okay. But silence does not come cheap. And our children have paid the price more dearly than anyone. She unzipped the folder and started to draw out papers. Bank statements, tax returns, ledgers. This, she put down the first pile on the evidence table, is evidence of money drawn out of our shared family accounts. Tens of thousands of dollars, diverted into Robin's household. Vacations, jewelry, automobiles. While Christine was struggling to take care of her children after being cut off, while I was forced to supplement my own income to pay for things he denied paying. The courtroom burst with whispers. Even the judge's brows lifted as she perused the figures. Christine nodded next to Janelle, arms folded, eyes blazing with vindication. Kody leapt to his feet yet again. I worked hard for this family. I gave them everything. If they're too thankful to realize it, sit down, Mr. Brown. The judge boomed, the gavel thudding against the wood. Another outburst and I will find you in contempt. Kody dropped back into his seat, his chest pumping, his face contorted with fury. Robin tightened her grip on his arm, babbling wildly, but only seemed to make him angrier. Janelle continued, her tone even but intense. This wasn't a matter of mismanagement. This was favoritism, pure and simple. We trusted him. We believed his words. But the truth is plain. He constructed a future for one family at the expense of all the others. And our children, they came up seeing their father favor one above the others. When the children were mentioned, the mood changed. The courtroom was no longer about dollars and cents. It was about family, about the personal toll of Kody's decisions. Christine rose a second time, her voice shaking with held-back emotion. My daughter Isabel underwent serious surgery. She needed her father, and he did not appear. Do you know where he was, Your Honor? With Robin. Always Robin. The courtroom gasped. Janelle moved toward Christine, putting a hand on her shoulder in support. Christine's voice became more powerful. We pleaded with him to be there, to split his time equally, to recall that each of his children was entitled to love and attention. But he made his decision, time and again. And we, the wives who gave him everything, were left behind. The judge wrote furious notes. Her mouth pursed tightly in disapproval. The courtroom was quiet now, the intensity of Christine's words weighing down the very spirits in the room. But Janelle wasn't finished. She took out the last piece of evidence she had to present, a letter. Your Honor, this was penned by one of my children. I won't tell you which, to respect their privacy, but it says more about the essence of this case than any figures ever could. She opened the paper, her hands not trembling, her eyes brimming as she read. Dad, I don't know why you don't come round anymore. I don't know what I did wrong. I used to wait for you, hoping that you would turn up, but you never did. I see you with Robin's children and I question. Why not me? Why not us? Were we not good enough? Gasps and sniffles filled the air. Even the judge stopped, her eyes briefly softening as the words penetrated. Christine wiped her eyes, her jaw clenched. Janelle folded the letter neatly and returned it to the folder. This is what his decisions wrought, Janelle said softly but definitively. Not only shattered marriages but shattered children. And that, Your Honor, is why we stand here. This is not about money. It's about responsibility. Kody buried his face in his hands, growling angrily to himself. The force of the evidence was weighing him down, bit by bit, removing the facade he had struggled so desperately to keep up. The man once given to strutting about with such pride now seemed small, vulnerable, beaten. She sat back, her face neutral. This court has heard persuasive testimony and witnessed weighty evidence today. We will proceed tomorrow with cross-examinations. For the moment, we will recess. Her gavel came down on the block, but what carried on the echoes was far more than the sound of wood. It was the truth, that Kody Brown's dynasty, once invincible, was now crumbling before the entire world's eyes. As people filed out of the courtroom, reporters shouted questions, cameras flashed, and fans outside the courthouse chanted Christine and Janelle's names. Inside, the two women stood side by side, their bond stronger than ever. Christine turned to Janelle, a faint smile tugging at her lips. We're doing it. We're finally doing it. Janelle nodded, her eyes fierce with determination. And we're not stopping now. At the same time, Kody continued to slump in his chair, Robin whispering wildly in his ear. But regardless of what she told him, regardless of how closely she held on to him, nothing could efface the realization that the truth was out, and it was just the start. The following morning, the courtroom hummed with even greater anticipation than the day prior. Journalists had spent the night sleeping on the steps outside. News headlines dominated social media, and the world was eager to find out how Kody Brown, once the proud patriarch of sister wives, would stand up when it was his turn on the stand. Christine and Janelle sat side by side inside, serene but unbreakable. They had testified to the truth. They had set their facts on the table. And now it was the turn of Kody to put up a defense. But the question on everybody's mind was straightforward. Could he? The bailiff asked the court to come to order. The judge tweaked her glasses, her tone stern. Mr. Brown, rise to the stand. Kody stood up slowly, his jaw set, his eyes flicking to Christine and Janelle with a scowl that blended anger and desperation. He adjusted his jacket, attempting to pose as confident, but his thudding footsteps betrayed the pressure crushing him. As he took the oath and settled into the witness chair, the room contracted. The air thickened. This was it, the opportunity to stand up for the empire he had created, to speak his piece. His attorney started softly. Mr. Brown, you've been characterized as an abusive husband and father. How do you answer these charges? Kody rocked forward, his tone harsh but shaking with repressed anger. It's not true. Any of it. I gave everything to this family. Everything. Do you think it's easy keeping 4 wives and that many children? Do you think someone else could have done what I did? The phrases echoed with defensiveness, but lacked conviction. His voice was bitter, his posture defensive. Christine observed him intently, her lips set hard, as Janelle nodded her head slightly, arms folded. The attorney pressed on. And what of accusations of favoritism? That you favored Robin and her children above the rest. Kody's gaze flashed at Robin, who sat white-knuckled and rigid at the defense table. He balled his hands into fists. Favoritism. Come on. Robin was the only one of them who treated me with dignity. The others? They disrespected me, belittled me, turned the kids against me. What was I supposed to do? Reward disloyalty. Gasps echoed within the courtroom. Even the judge arched an eyebrow at his confession. Christine and Janelle gave him a look. His words were making their argument for them. The attorney quickly changed gears, catching the danger. Mr. Brown, let's speak of money. Can you tell us about the withdrawals and property transfers outlined yesterday? Kody sneered, his voice increasing. Yes, I can tell you, because I was the leader of this family. I called the shots. They trusted me to take care of it. And I did. If they didn't like it, they should have said something then. Not now, when they're angry and attempting to destroy me. The judge clicked her pen on the bench, unconvinced. Christine leaned over to Janelle and whispered, "He doesn't even know he's confessing." Janelle nodded, her stare focused intently on Kody as a hawk sights its prey. And then the cross-examination. Christine and Janelle's lawyer stood up, smoothing his tie with measured calm. His tone was silky but with an undercurrent of steel. Mr. Brown, you say you handled the family finances equitably, but isn't it a fact that most of the money went into Robin's home? Kody flushed. That's not true. The lawyer placed a bank statement on the evidence table. Is this your signature? Kody swallowed, his Adam's apple bobbing. Yes, but no additional questions on that topic. The attorney's voice sliced through the air. He moved in closer, his voice dropping to a growl. Mr. Brown, we listened to a tape yesterday where you said your sole concern was Robin and her kids. Do you dispute having made that statement? Kody huddled in his seat, clutching the armrest until his knuckles whitened. It was out of context. I was angry. They were always attacking me. And Robin was the only one standing up for me. That does not mean I didn't love my other children. Christine's voice, strong and calm, cut through the silence. Then where were you when Isabel needed you, Kody? The judge gave her a stern glance. But the question hung in the air like a knife. Kody's face crumpled, his mouth opening in horror, but no words emerged. His silence was louder than any possible denial. The lawyer took advantage of the moment. Mr. Brown, doesn't it happen that your being absent from your daughter's surgery was not the first time you weren't there? Doesn't it happen that several children have complained of feelings of abandonment on your watch? Kody blew up. They were poisoned against me. Christine and Janelle poisoned them against me because they couldn't get their own marriages to work. The gallery broke into whispers. The judge slammed the gavel in outrage. Order, Mr. Brown. You will compose yourself, or I will find you in contempt. Kody leaned forward, his tone reducing to a poisonous hiss. They want to turn me into the villain. But I'm not the villain. I'm the one who attempted to hold this family together as they ripped it apart. The lawyer paced around him like a predator. Mr. Brown, listen to yourself. You talk of control, of power, of loyalty. But where in your testimony have we heard love? Where have we heard compassion for your wives, your children? The words hit him like blows. Kody blinked hard, his lips opening and closing, but he said nothing. The mask was cracking, and all could see it. And then, the final blast. Mr. Brown, isn't it true that over the past 5 years, You spent more nights in Robin's home than in all your other homes combined? Robin exhaled softly, eyes wide, as if even she didn't know the question was coming. Christine's eyes narrowed. Janelle leaned forward, anticipating his response. Kody went silent. The silence spoke volumes. The lawyer held the silence, heavy as it was, before stepping back. No further questions. The judge took a deep breath, her face wearied but determined. This court has heard enough for today. We will proceed tomorrow. Her gavel came down, closing the session, but its echoes spoke louder than finality, of a man's empire crumbling. Christine and Janelle stood, their faces serene yet firm. They had seen Kody break, seen him reveal himself under the stress of reality. The courtroom was no longer his, it was theirs. As Kody leaned back in his chair, Robin talking urgently at his side, the cameras outside the courthouse geared up for the day's headlines. And the world was already abuzz with one irrepressible fact. Kody Brown's mask had at last cracked, and there was no gluing it back together. By the time court resumed the next morning, mood had altered. The uncertainty was gone, the nagging question of whether Christine and Janelle's accusations were overstated. With the rough cross-examination of Kody, the world had witnessed a far different man than the charming patriarch once showcased on television. The media storm outside was unlike anything the courthouse had seen in years. Satellite trucks lined the street, journalists fought for space, and hashtags like #CodyExposed and #TeamChristine and Janelle trended across social platforms. Memes of Kody's outbursts were already viral, screenshots of him screaming, his fists clenched juxtaposed with captions like "Love should be multiplied, not divided unless you're Kody." Within, Christine and Janelle entered hand in hand, side by side, their faces firm, nearly tranquil. They had no need to utter a word. Its meaning was well understood. Their friends, many of whom were women who had previously identified with the plight of plural marriage, packed the gallery, nodding offerings of support and murmuring promises of solidarity. Kody, on the other hand, appeared wilted. His former commanding presence was diminished. His shoulders slumped, his eyes avoiding the cameras that had once fawned over him. Robin accompanied him, white-faced and red-rimmed from crying, holding on to his arm as if to keep him whole. Even she could not conceal the damage incurred. His judge wasted no time. "We will resume where we left off. The plaintiffs may call their next witness." Christine and Janelle's attorney rose. "Your Honor, we would like to recall Mr. Brown briefly, but only to introduce new evidence relevant to yesterday's testimony." The judge permitted it. Kody came back onto the stand, looking clearly upset. The attorney waved a hefty binder. "Mr. Brown, these are texts, emails and recordings gathered through discovery. They include dialogue among yourself and Robin about the financial accounts at issue." Kody shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "This is an invasion of privacy." The judge interrupted him. "It's admissible. Continue." The lawyer turned a page and read out loud. "Robin, I've transferred the money to our account. They'll never trace it. We deserve this after what they've done to us." Gasps spread throughout the courtroom. Robin put a hand over her mouth, eyes wide with shock. Christine and Janelle sat frozen in triumph. The proof was clear. "Mr. Brown," the lawyer went on, his voice measured, "do you deny having sent this message?" Kody stuttered, his cheeks burning. "It was taken out of context. I was angry." The lawyer slammed the binder closed. "So you confessed to transferring money in secret from your wives." The silence that surrounded them was oppressive. The judge's face came forward, her tone sharp. "Mr. Brown, your statement is becoming more and more contradictory. You would do well to recall you are on oath." Christine and Janelle's attorney turned to the jury. "Ladies and gentlemen, you've now heard it from his own mouth. The favoritism wasn't just emotional, it was financial. He siphoned resources from the family under the guise of leadership, leaving others without." Kody gritted his teeth, his eyes blazing with anger, but there was no going back. His kingdom of domination had been recorded in black and white, and the judge had witnessed it. The case was everywhere by recess. News anchors picked apart every moment. Commentators argued the significance of Kody's demise, and footage of Christine and Janelle entering court hand in hand was shown repeatedly. Outside, groups of people had assembled, many of them carrying signs that stated "Justice for Christine and Janelle" and "Protect the kids." Formerly adoring fans of the show, once in love with the concept of plural marriage, now yelled for accountability. Even stars of Hollywood chimed in. Late-night talk show hosts mocked Kody's haughtiness. Reality TV personalities offered messages of encouragement to Christine and Janelle, and legal pundits forecast that the judge would have no choice but to rule decisively against him. The tide had shifted. The public opinion was no longer divided. It was turned against Kody, and worse, his efforts to defend himself just made it deeper. After recess, Christine was called back to the stand. Her temper was cool, almost serene, as if the tempest raging around her merely made her determination stronger. "Mrs. Brown," the attorney started, "following yesterday's testimony, do you have anything else to say?" Christine nodded. Her voice was firm but with a tinge of sadness. "I just wish people would get it. We didn't come here to hurt Kody. We came here to protect ourselves and our children. For years we had to deal with being made to feel less than, invisible, unwanted. And now that we are seeing in a clear light that we were being betrayed financially as well, this isn't about revenge. This is about truth." The courtroom went quiet, the majority of the gallery wiping away their tears. Even the judge softened for an instant, her eyes locking with Christine's in something akin to respect. Janelle stepped forward to her with a soft declaration of her own. "I stood by Kody for decades, through the good times and the bad, thinking we were creating something together. Yesterday what I saw was not a husband, not a leader, it was a man grasping for power he no longer holds. We are here today because enough is enough." Their words, emotional and unshaken, penetrated deeper than any argument of law could. The defense floundered, attempting to get back in control. Kody's attorney tried to deflect, demonizing Christine and Janelle as bitter ex-wives distorting their pain out of spite, but the harm was done. When given one final opportunity to speak to the court, Kody blew up. "You don't understand," he bellowed, his face crimson, veins throbbing. "You think they're saints. They left me, they poisoned my kids against me. I gave them everything, and this is how they pay me back." The judge pounded the gavel. "Mr. Brown, this is your last warning." But Kody couldn't quit. He stood from the stand, waving his arms wildly at Christine and Janelle. "You think you've won, you've made everyone turn against me, but I'm still the head of this family. You'll never take that away from me." The bailiff moved to intervene, but Christine just shook her head, her voice soft but devastating. "You lost that position a long time ago, Kody. You just couldn't see it." The words muzzled him more than any gavel. He slumped into his chair, shaking with anger, but helpless. By the close of the session, it was apparent the story had changed entirely. Christine and Janelle were no longer mere women fleeing a bad marriage. They were survivors fighting back against decades of manipulation, abandonment, and financial deceit. And Kody, he was no longer head of a large household. He was a man bear, a leader without followers, a husband without allegiance. The judge recessed for the day, her face stern but clearly leaning in Christine and Janelle's favor. The jury spoke in hushed tones, their faces revealing sympathy for plaintiffs and contempt for defendant. Outdoors the crowd shouted louder. "Justice! Justice!" Christine and Janelle came out hand in hand, flashbulbs popping, their fans cheering. They did not appear to be victims. They appeared to be victors. Kody departed through an exit, his head hung low, protected by guards from the jeers of the crowd. His empire, founded on control and charisma, was going down more quickly than he could restore it. And with the sun setting on the day's business, one thing had become inescapable. The world had made its choice. Christine and Janelle weren't only winning in court, they were winning in the court of public opinion. And that above all else did Kody in. The last day of the trial came on dark skies. Clouds lingered low above the courthouse, as if nature itself felt the weight of what was to come. The reporters milled outside, live broadcasting. Groups of supporters and detractors alike pushed against the barricades, shouting slogans and holding signs. Tension hung in the air. The verdict would arrive. Within, the courtroom was full of tension. Christine and Janelle sat side by side at the plaintiff's table, serene but openly nervous. Their supporters crowded the gallery, many holding their breath in support. On the opposite side, Kody slumped in his seat, his face ashen, his eyes red from lack of sleep. Robin sat next to him, her hand clenched around his, though even she seemed exhausted, her reserve fraying. The judge entered. Everyone stood. When they sat, the silence had been deafening. Even the rustle of papers had sounded like thunder in the stillness. Ladies and gentlemen, the judge opened, her voice firm and authoritative, following lengthy testimony, cross-examination, and presentation of evidence. This court stands ready to render its ruling. Kody straightened, his chest heaving as though bracing for impact. Christine and Janelle leaned closer to one another, their fingers interlaced beneath the table. The judge glanced toward the jury box. The foreperson rose, holding a sheet of paper. His voice was steady but deliberate. In the case of Christine and Janelle Brown against Kody Brown, on issues of financial misconduct, emotional neglect, and violation of marital duty, we the jury find in favor of the plaintiffs. There was a shared gasp that filled the room. Christine's eyes immediately welled up with tears, and Janelle had a hand at her mouth, her body shaking in relief. Supporters in the crowd broke into whispers and stifled cheers. The foreperson went on. We conclude, Mr. Brown committed repeated favoritism, mismanagement of common funds, and behavior that amounted to abandonment of marital duties. Damages are awarded to Christine and Janelle, with restitution in full of monies embezzled to the Robin Brown home. The judge slammed her gavel to quieten the room. There will be silence in this courtroom. Kody's face went red, veins protruding on his temples. His fists were clenched, his jaw set, his entire body shaking with rage. This isn't justice, he shouted, standing up. This is betrayal. This is them making the entire world hate me. The judge glared at him. Mr. Brown, you are in line. Sit down. But Kody couldn't break. He pounded his fists on the table, his voice shattering as he yelled, I built this family. I gave everything. And now you want to take it all away because of lies. The bailiff stepped forward, prepared to step in. Robin pulled on his arm, talking urgently. Kody, stop, please. But she was shouting into a vacuum. Christine stood, her voice calm yet razor-sharp. This isn't betrayal, Kody. It's accountability. Something you've avoided your entire life. The courtroom froze at her words. Even the judge leaned back slightly, allowing the silence to stretch. Kody's breath was labored, his chest rising and falling as if he were a trapped animal. For the first time, he appeared to grasp reality. His words weren't potent here. His authority was lost. His kingdom of fear, favoritism, and manipulation lay in shambles beneath the weight of reality. Lastly, the judge issued her final judgment. Mr. Brown, restitution will be paid in such amount as determined by this court. Additionally, based on your constant outbursts and proven lack of control, custody and visitation issues relating to your children will be reviewed in individual hearings. This case is adjourned. Her gavel came down with a resounding crash. His doom was sealed. The crowd erupted in cheers as soon as Christine and Janelle emerged outside. Cameras snapped, microphones were pushed forward, and their names were chanted as anthems. Christine, Janelle. Christine, Janelle. Christine, still with tears on her face, swept her hand across the air for silence. This wasn't just about us, she proclaimed, her words carrying themselves on the cluster of journalists. It was about every woman to have ever been silenced, ignored, or belittled. We today established that truth prevails, that power lies in standing together. Janelle trailed behind her, speaking with conviction. We are not victims. We are survivors. And we hope our story encourages others to stand up, no matter how powerful the person trying to hold you down might be. The audience cheered in agreement, their words flying instantly across social media and news feeds. In a few minutes, hashtags such as #Christine and Janelle win and #Justice for the sister wives dominated worldwide trends. Meanwhile, Kody made a secret exit through a side door, protected by guards. But the media spotted him anyway. Questions swirled like arrows. Kody, do you have any regrets? What do you tell your kids? Are you appealing? He growled at the cameras, pushing through them, his face contorted with anger. You'll all see. This isn't over. But his words were empty. The world had already passed him by. He was no longer a leader. He was a cautionary example. In the weeks that ensued, the repercussions were seismic. Christine and Janelle's win was front-page news. They were invited on leading chat shows, recounting their tale with dignity and grace. Their bravery was being celebrated as being trailblazing, not only for ex-polygamist wives, but for women everywhere who had suffered neglect or manipulation. Book contracts were made available. Networks hurried to provide them with platforms. They were symbols of strength, their relationship hailed as evidence of sisterhood and resilience. Kody, on the other hand, continued to spiral. Former allies walked away. TLC stated it would be restructuring its relationship with him, essentially ending his reign as the public face of sister wives. Financial audits uncovered even more discrepancies, leading to possible future lawsuits. Even among his own family, the consequences were harsh. A number of his adult children issued public statements of disavowal. Some offered personal anecdotes of neglect and pain, substantiating the patterns Christine and Janelle had established. His credibility, previously supported by reality TV celebrity, disintegrated completely. Robin stayed with him, but that once comfortable picture of their home became one of loneliness. Paparazzi caught them appearing tired, beaten, and resentful. While Christine and Janelle strolled with heads held high, Kody and Robin crept along like ghosts. But the real closure didn't result from tabloid headlines or monetary compensation. It arrived in the intimate moments when the storm had passed. One evening, weeks following the verdict, Christine and Janelle sat in Janelle's yard. The sun was setting, casting the sky in gold and crimson. They drank tea, their laughter effortless, their shoulders finally unburdened of the heavy weight they had carried for so long. Christine addressed Janelle. "Do you ever consider how afraid we were to do this? How much he made us believe we couldn't live without him?" Janelle smiled gently. "And look at us now. We didn't survive. We won." For the first time in years, they weren't wives existing in the shadow of Kody Brown. They were women existing in the light of their own power. Kody Brown was once at the center of a large family, his every step recorded, his every utterance sent into millions of homes. He believed himself to be untouchable, a man set to be remembered as a leader who changed the face of family. Instead, he was remembered for something else. For the way his wives stood up against him, for the way his children testified, for the way his empire of domination fell apart in one courtroom, and for the way Christine and Janelle showed that regardless of how tight the shackles of manipulation appear, they can be shattered. Because at the end of it all, Kody didn't lose a court battle. He lost the family he professed to lead. He lost the respect of a nation. And most importantly, he lost the illusion that he was ever in control.